Hey folks, just wanted to check in with everyone and give us a quick rundown of Romeo and Juliet Act 1, Scene 1, because now that you've read it and hopefully watched the video, um, I just wanted to go over what actually happens because it's kind of a lot. It starts off with a lot. And honestly, this is maybe my favorite part of Romeo and Juliet as a whole. Like I think it starts off really well. I think it starts off as a funny scene, and I think it's meant to be funny because how the characters interact and what they do seems really interesting to me. So hopefully this works. But I'm just gonna kind of watch it with you. I think this version of the movie does, or version of the film, version of the play, this one does a really good job of like kind of showing you everything that happens. But let's see. Let's hope it works. Yep. All right. So here we are. We're in Verona, obviously. You can tell that's older. Uh, Crowded streets, right? Marketplace. And we get introduced to these super broy dudes, Gregory and Samson. And then there's this other guy in the back. He doesn't matter. But you can kind of tell that these are just uber bros. And they're just basically talking trash about how tough they are. Then they see Montagues. And once the Montagues enter, they decide that they're really going to start some, they're going to really try to pick a fight. Um, so I believe it's Samson says, like, hey, how about I bite my thumb at them? Like, if I can pick a fight with them, and then they're the ones who take their swords out first and start fighting, then we don't get in trouble. It's self defense for us. So how about I pick a fight with them? I'll bite my thumb at them as they walk past us. And that will start a fight, but they'll look bad because they pulled their swords out first. And these two, Capulet, Samson, and Gregory, seem really kind of cowardly at the end. Like they talk a lot of big game, but they don't really do much. So when he bites his thumb, the Montagues say, I think it's Abram says, like, "Did you bite your thumb at us?" And he says, "Well, I did bite my thumb, but it wasn't at you." And the reason he is saying it wasn't at you is because they have a little chat. And if he admits to saying like, yes, I bit my thumb and it was at you, then he starts the fight. And then when the cops show up, he's going to be in trouble because he insulted them. Biting in this time, like biting your thumb at someone is basically the equivalent of giving them the middle finger. Uh, so he's bites his thumb, and then they say like, "Oh, did was that at us? Were you biting your thumb at us?" And he says, "Well, like he doesn't want to get arrested, so he says, "Well, no, I was biting my thumb, but I wasn't biting it at you." So he's trying to work around that whole thing. Then basically he says, "Hey, you want to fight?" And he says, "No, I don't want to fight." Um, and then he says, like, "Well, if you do want to fight, we'll fight you. We'll fight you, bro." And he says, "No, that's all right." And then they say like, "Well, if you do want to fight, don't worry, because our boss is just as good as your boss." And he says, "No, no better." And Benvolio in the play, like the written part, Benvolio shows up and they say, "Nope, you've got to say better." So they say better, and then this fight breaks out. Right. So now everyone is fighting, and the more they fight, the more people get involved. Right. You can see citizens jumping in because this happens a lot. They're knocking stuff over. Citizens are trying to break it up because they're in the middle of a market. People are going to be losing their money and everything if they keep fighting. And it's kind of like this big chaos, right? Good guy Benvolio, that's him right there. He shows up and he's trying to break up the fight because if you remember from our character intros, he's tired of this fighting. He wants to be done with it. And he does get them to stop a little bit, but then Tybalt shows up, the bad guy. And Tybalt's like, "Hey, Benvolio, in the play. he doesn't say it in the video, but like in the play, he says like, "Why are you fighting all of these nobodies, these lower level citizens?" Well, he actually does say it in the video. I missed that. He says, "How about you fight someone who's more your speed? Like pick on someone your own size." He says, "Fight me." And Benvolio says, "No, the only reason I'm fighting is because I'm trying to keep the peace. I'm tired of this fighting." Um, and Tybalt says, "You have your sword out and you're talking of peace. I hate that word peace. I hate it as much as I hate death. I hate it as much as I hate Montagues." So then Tybalt gets involved and he starts fighting. Now, if you remember, Tybalt's a really good sword fighter. So Benvolio does all right. No one important here dies. Um, but now, as more and more people get involved, as more people get involved, the prince decides, that he needs to show up. This is I think is the funniest part in the actual play, um, because in the play it says that Lord Capulet enters in his gown, meaning Lord Capulet, this guy, isn't meant to be in his pajamas, and yells at his wife. He yells to his wife like, bring me my sword," and his wife says, "A crutch, a crutch. You don't need a sword. You're so old. You need a crutch." Right? So Capulet, this guy, is supposed to be in his pajamas right now. An old man begging for a sword, standing in his pajamas, watching people fight. And Lady Capulet won't let him, but then he says, and then old man Montague, this guy, shows up. And Lord Capulet says, "Montague is over there teasing me. I need my sword because I won't let him tease me." Neither Lady Capulet nor Lady Montague want this fighting to happen. They're over it. They're tired of it. But all of the men are being super broy and are just continuing to fight. Again, you can see citizens getting in on this. They're trying to get them to stop, um, and they're just not having it. Like this is just utter chaos. In the play, it's never really explicitly stated if anyone dies. I guess it's assumed. But now that there's so much chaos, the prince shows up with his awesome spray tan. Um, and the prince shows up with his awesome spray tan and a bunch of guards, and he officially, like, he is successful at getting them to quit fighting, because none of the Capulets or the Montagues are really like soldiers, right? They're just kind of your generic tough guys who happen to have weapons. So when actual soldiers show up, the Capulets and Montagues probably are able to figure out that if this was a real fight with like people with armor and trained, that they would probably get annihilated. So the prince is obviously pretty upset because he says three times, the citizens of Verona have gotten involved in these fights to try to break it up, because one of your men, Capulet or Montague, always says something stupid to pick a fight, and then it's chaos, and then all the citizens get involved, and the prince is over it. He's tired of the fighting, he's tired of the chaos, so he tells everyone to leave, and he says, "If you fight again, if I catch any of you fighting again, I'm just going to kill you." So he sets up this meeting in which he's really going to lay down the law. We don't really see the meeting, um, but he basically says, like, "Stop fighting or I'll just kill you because this is ridiculous." Um, and this is kind of where the exciting part of the first act or the first scene ends. The prince rides off, the Capulets go away, and then it's Benvolio with Lady and Lord Montague, and Lady Montague starts off by asking, like, "Hey, has anyone seen Romeo?" And the answer is no. No one has really seen Romeo, except Benvolio says, "Well, I did see him this morning. I went out for a walk because I wasn't sleeping well, and I saw Romeo. And when I said hi to him, Romeo let out a heavy sigh and turned around and walked away from me. So I assumed he wanted to be alone. So I just left it. And then in the play, they're talking a little bit about like, do we know what's going on? And Lady and Lord Montague say, nope, he won't talk to us. And Benvolio says, I'll try to talk to him. Look, there he is, right? So Benvolio is going to talk to Romeo and try to figure out uh, what's going on with him. Why is he so depressed? Um, so he goes up to Romeo and says, "Hey, Romeo, like, why are you? Good morning. Why are you so sad?" And Romeo gives all sorts of depressing answers, like, "It's morning, man, like still morning, blah blah blah." So and he goes and tries to hide when people are walking by, like a weird, scared dog. I also really like this because like Romeo is trying to hide, and Benvolio, yeah, super smooth, read a book, that seems to have come out of nowhere, act casual. So they start having a conversation, and Benvolio is, things are kind of starting to get to normal. Like Romeo seems okay in the play. The video is obviously a little different. Romeo seems a little okay, and then he notices the fight. And he's like, what happened here? And he goes, boom, right back down in depression. And we find out that the reason Romeo is so depressed is because he is in love with a woman who doesn't love him back. Now, whether he's actually in love or whether he's more concerned about having sex with her is, well, depending on who you ask, I think it's pretty obvious that he's not actually in love. He just wants to have sex with this person and she doesn't want to. So he's all bummed out about that, meaning like, oh, she doesn't love me. Um, and Benvolio has decided that the best way for Romeo to get over this other girl, Rosalind, is to look at other pretty girls around Verona. So Benvolio sets up this plan where he and Romeo are going to go around and look at other pretty girls in Verona. Uh, and that's where our first act, well, our first scene in our first act of Romeo and Juliet ends. So thanks for sitting with me for a little while and listening to me talk about this. Uh, please let me know if you have any questions, and we'll talk again soon.